I came across a vampire who has a song. A vampire who has a song. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bigger Than Life. I'm a recording artist and lyricist from Ghana, and I'm bringing you a hot Ghanaian jollof from the archives of the music icons. Yeah, something that you've probably never heard in history before. Yeah, like this the way I'm saying a vampire singing. Have you heard of that before? No, but here, listen to me. We are going to discuss The Sound of Silence by Simon and Garfunkel. Yes, The Sound of Silence, which was written by Simon. And you know why I called Simon a vampire? No, you don't. Simon actually had all his inspirations from darkness. He used to go to the bathroom and be there quietly observing in the darkness and be thinking about himself. And Simon was like, that's where he found his inspiration. Just look at this. I began thinking if Simon is a vampire or he goes to the bathroom to do soapy. Anyway, that's just by the way. I didn't say that. It was my mouth, please. My mouth, this mouth. This mouth. Shut up. All right. Anyway, and The Sound of Silence is a song by the American folk rock duo Simon and Garfunkel, written by Paul Simon. It took Simon 3 months to write the song. Three whopping months to write the song. Just imagine this. Imagine using 3 months to write a song. Just imagine how perfect the song, because he wanted to have the song at its perfect gesture. All right. And the original acoustic version of the song was recorded in 1964. And you see that original acoustic version, it was recorded in March 1964 at Columbia's 7th Avenue Recording Studios in New York for their debut album, Wednesday Morning 3 a.m. And it was released in October the same year. If you hear Wednesday Morning 3 a.m., I'm not talking about time, no. I'm talking about the name of the album that The Sound of Silence was added to. Yes. And if you hear Columbia Record is a record label that signed Simon and Garfunkel, those duos. Okay, so there are many conspiracies surrounding the song, although. So we are going to look at those conspiracies and look if those conspiracies match some logical calculation or not. We'll be diving through that. And now let's look at the first conspiracy. It says it was believed to have been a tribute song for President John F. Kennedy. If you know or heard of President John F. Kennedy, he was the 35th president of the United States of Africa. And this man was voted into power in 1961 and was assassinated in 1963. Yes, that's John F. Kennedy. And that same 1963 was that time that this man, Simon, wrote his song. So at least we could somehow connect the dots and make it make sense. But anyway, we will look at more evidence to back it up. And the second conspiracy is it was also believed to have been a song against racism, which was very strong in that era. Racism was rampant in that era when Simon wrote that song, which is The Sound of Silence. And that time, when blacks were brutally scandalized and bullied by police and other white American citizens. Yes, that was the time Simon wrote that song. It was, racism was at its peak at that moment. And, there was an emerging movement that were kicking against that. And people were also fighting against and in favor of certain bills that were to be passed, to counter those scandalization that affected the blacks. All right. Now let's look at the logical breakdown of the conspiracies. Let's begin with the assassination conspiracy. John F. Kennedy was assassinated on 22nd November 1963 While according to Garfunkel was recently interviewed and he said the song was originally written on November 1963. But you know, the twist was he took 3 months to perfect the song. So today he will come and check the song and he will say, no, I must add this word here, I must delete this, I must add. So the adding and the deleting, and you see, he balanced all that until 3 months before the song was ready. So if the song took 3 months from November, it means he finished writing the song in February, which is February 1964. All right. And you see, Paul and Garfunkel visited Columbia Records Studio for audition on March 1964. So their first studio audition was made at Columbia Studio in 1964. So we see that there is a connection to that. So if somebody tells me that this song was written as a tribute song to John F. Kennedy, I have no other option than to accept him until there are other facts to back it or to debunk it. You understand? So let's move on. And you see, 1964 was when they recorded that song. They were actually signed on that record label that very day they went for the audition. God being so good. Now let's look at the logical breakdown of the conspiracy, the racism conspiracy, right? The song written or recorded to counter the racism attack that was happening in that very period. On the 15th of September 1963, the 16th Street Baptist Church experienced a terrorist attack. They experienced a terrorist attack. And the bombing killed 4 young girls, which is Addie Mae Collins, which was 14 years old, Cynthia Wesley, 14, Carol Robertson, 14, and Denise McNair. She was 11 years old. You know, the blast also injured more than 20 other people from the church. But I think it was just a terrorist attack, right? No. There are more twists to the story than that. There are more to the story than that. Here is a twist to the story. The attack was a racial attack actually because the church was predominantly African American church and its congregation was actively involved in the civil rights movement. If you've heard of the civil rights movement, you know that the church was like a whole meeting place for that kind of movement. They were planning and plotting on how to make sure blacks had their freedom in the United States of America. Yes. And the church the church you know the church served as a meeting place for civil rights leaders like Martin Luther the King Jr. You've heard of him, right? Yeah. So if a church that served as a meeting place for Martin Luther Jr. the King and other people, imagine, like, just imagine, what is the church about? It's all about blacks movement. You understand? Good. The church was also a hub for organizing protests, rallies, and other activities. Anyway, protests and rallies. If the church is predominantly an African church and they have to organize rallies and protests, what protests and rallies do you think they will organize? You see, they will organize a protest and a rally that will make sure that it will empower the Africans, or kick against the racial abuse that the blacks were facing in the United States of America. You understand? So with that, it is very clear that that particular attack on that church was a racial attack. So if you could bear in mind with me, that is another evidence. Why was the church attacked? Let's look at that. Why was the church attacked? This church was attacked by the racists because the church was attacked to silence the African American community, protesting their demand for equal rights and end to segregation. You understand? So, these blacks were actually being scandalized, and, they were treated very badly in the United States of America, and they needed their freedom. So this church was actually a hub where they organized protests to make sure they bring about the protests to bring end to all that they were going through. So it was a whole movement on its own. You understand? The church was seen as a symbol of African American resistance and activism. Yes, that is true. Anyway, although Simon was white, that is true. Simon might be white, but who knows? Maybe he disliked all what they were doing. Like, he can't watch his fellow human being being scandalized, brutalized, segregated, and others. And he thinks he has to find something. He has to sing for them. Maybe it might be the reason for this song, "Hello Darkness." And as a human, you just have to be human. It doesn't matter who the person is, whether the person is white, is black, is rich or poor. Man, treat human as human. That's it. You don't have to be very selective in who to give respect. Respect everyone and anyone. Yes, you only disrespect a person who disrespects you. So maybe Simon was using that theory. Maybe that type of person who doesn't like racism. So it could be a reason. But I want you to tell me in the comments section why Simon released this song. Why did Simon release this song? After the song was released in October, the album was able to sell only 2,000 copies. Yes, the album was only able to sell only 2,000 copies. But you see, I've also been thinking about somebody like me who is a musician, and I've been singing for a very long time. After going to record at the studio, go and see my spiritual father. My spiritual father shows me a way I could amass more followers and streams. I do all of that, then I get 15 plays in a month. And let me tell you something. That 15 plays, in fact, I've streamed about 10 out of the 15. So if you shake and shake and shake and subtract all those people who stream my song, they will not be more than five. And that's the truth, because when I release a song, every night I listen to the song. And 2,000, if I'm able to even get 2,000 views on my Spotify, bro, I feel like I'm a hero. I begin feeling like I'm Drake or I'm Jay-Z, man. 2,000 copies, it is a failure. This is why it's a failure. It's a failure because it's a whole record label. A whole record label. And it's sometimes very difficult to think that the people he was even singing to, they didn't even like what he was doing. You understand? In 1965, here's the success story. Yes, here is the success story. The honey and milk story. In 1965, producer Tom Rossi noticed the acoustic track was gaining unexpected play in Boston and Florida. So he remixed the song. Wilson added spices to the original song. He added some chilies, some peppers, some gingers, and he steamed it, mixed it up, added some salt, and the song became tasty like Aligun Tugui or the Ghanaian jollof. So the remix song version was released as a single. The song became a hit. The song actually became a hit. Yes, it became a hit on the first 100 singles on the Billboard, and it was first at that time. Just imagine, that was around 1966. So on January 1st, 1966, it became number one on the Billboard for Hot 100 singles. Yes. And this success led to the duo's reunion. Yes. Do you know when a song was actually when the song failed, when the song failed, they separated. Everybody went his separate ways. But after the song became a success, they all came together to enjoy the success story. That is a beautiful love story, although. Now let's see the lyrical theme and social commentary. The song is about alienation and disconnection in the modern world. Yes, the song talks about alienation and disconnection in the modern world, and also the search for meaning and authenticity. Yes, that is it. As I'm here right now, I'm still searching for meaning. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing in my life. Man, I've been trying this. I'm a YouTuber. I'm a plumber. Oh, no, nothing is working. I'm searching for the meaning at this age. Bro, I didn't think this life. In fact, I even regret becoming an adult. I'd even be an ad without an ought. Yes. Why? No, an adult is a scam. And I just realized it, and that is true. And it talks about the tension between silence and noise. Also, the struggle to communicate and connect with others too. That is what the song is talking about. And the theme still is that lack of authentic communication. You don't communicate enough with your peers, you don't communicate enough with your wife, you don't communicate enough with other people. So our hearts are far from each other, although we are close. Yes, you know why when two people are fighting, they shout, although they are very close. You know why? Because their body is close, but their hearts are far away. So they have to shout before they could listen. You understand? So the lack of authentic communication has been a problem. You must be very clear as possible. Be transparent. All right. Observing a crowd of 10,000 people. That is what Paul wrote in a song. He said that he was observing a crowd of 10,000 people, talking without speaking, hearing without listening. What does that mean? Talking without speaking. You could talk without actually speaking. Body language. You understand? You want to tell someone something, but you see, you are showing some kind of attitude. When you are there with a person and the person change in attitude, you notice it at once. Why? Because the person begins showing signs of change. That is what Simon was talking about. He described the crowd. Simon described the crowd as having bowed and prayed to the neon god they made. To the neon god they made. What am I talking about? You see, at that time, television was what was there. The lack of communication I was talking about was that these are families that has came across a new technology that brings them news from somewhere. It brings them pictures and videos from somewhere, which is the television. So this is a family when they had a very good communication before, but with the emergence of television at that time, people weren't paying attention to each other again. Everybody was on the TV watching his favorite show. So that's a new god. Humans made that, and it became their god. They give more attention to what they made than the humans that they were with. So it's just like, currently you are on your mobile phone. You understand why marriages don't last these days? Lack of communication. Husband and wife are on the bed instead of them to talk, communicate. Husband is on the phone and wife is also on the phone. Brother and sister are all on the phone. No one is saying anything. Friends used to meet outside to play, ride bicycle, laugh, chase each other. No, it doesn't. It's not that again. And now all you could see is everybody on a phone playing game, chatting on WhatsApp, Facebook, posting on Twitter. That's very bad. So that's the new god they were worshiping. And that time it was a television. Today it's a mobile phone, and we have many appliances than that. And he described the sound of silence. He said, "What? is a negative force that, like a cancer, it grows. Like a cancer grows. Obviously, a cancer grows. So you see, this sound of silence, it began from when TV emerged, and at this point in time, we have mobile phone, and the sound of silence has grown even bigger than before. Now it's worse. It's not about television again. It's about, hey, I miss online. Let me go to TikTok. Then you just enter TikTok. You be searching, watching videos, and there are people around you. All of them are on their phone. No one is talking. If you are not holding a phone, then it means you are lonely. Everybody is talking to his phone. The new God, we are worshiping it. Sometimes you have to put mobile phones and other gadgets aside and have real time communication with our peers. Let's get our heart close to each other, yeah? Don't let this new God that we made for ourselves ruin us. It is ruining this generation. What will happen in the next generation? Very horrible. Very, very horrible. Okay, so it's more like it emphasizes that indifference and complacency are destructive. That is true. That is the fact. And let's look at the cultural legacy. It was adopted as anti-war anthem during the Vietnam War. The Vietnam War started in 1955, and around 1963, the Vietnam War was still active. Yes, around 1963, because the Vietnam War was over around 1975 to 1977, around that area when Vietnam was over. And more than 20,000 soldiers were killed in that particular war. Very sad. And people were actually tired of hearing bad news. You have a brother who is a military and he goes in for a war and he doesn't return again. What? Who even invented this war? You have a sister, you have a brother, he goes to war, he doesn't return. Even a person returns, he returns with a half limb, a broken limb, an amputated limb. Oh, come on. You see, so this song, how as deep as it was adopted as anti-war anthem during the Vietnam War. And it was also used as an interior monologue for the main character in the 1967 film The Graduate, perfectly capturing his feelings of generational dissatisfaction. Of course, our generation is messed up. Hey, just look at us now and imagine the next generation. How will it tend to be? It's actually messed up. Yeah, obviously it's messed up. Good. And I don't want to watch that movie. Yes, it's called the Graduate. I'll search it out and watch it. It has appeared in modern films like The Watchmen. Yes, I think I have to watch that one too. I'm not a fan of movie, but then I have to start watching more movies because of Paul. Yeah, sorry, because of Simon. Good. And let's look at the bottom line. In 2015, the heavy metal band Disturbed released a cover. And you know what? This cover they released had 1.3 billion streams on YouTube. Wow, that's a whopping amount of streams. And my video barely gets 5 streams. I would not like to, and even those who stream my video don't stream for, they just stream for about 5 seconds, then they just quit. Wow, man. But 1.3 billion streams isn't a joke. No, not at all. If there is a joke, then next joke, please. But it is serious. Okay. And the cover became one of the Disturbed's biggest hits. Yeah, that is obvious because 1.3 billion. That is a big hit. And Paul Simon publicly endorsed the cover. Yes. Paul Simon was like, "Wow, this song is damn good, man. Charlie, you did well, brothers. Yeah, keep it up, Charlie. That's good." You see, you don't always have to eat alone. You have to let other brothers eat. Yeah. Anyway, so this brings us to the end of the presentation for this song, The Sound of Silence by Simon and Garfunkel. Are you going without subscribing? Oh, come on. Come on. Don't do that. You gotta subscribe to my YouTube channel and stay put for next content. Alright? Until then, let's say goodbye.